Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you're here, whether you're joining us live or watching the recording later. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this important conversation. Today, we're joined by Board of Directors Ron Lasowski and Ryan Fox, Fire Chief Nick Brown, Assistant Chief Steve Dieters, Chief Information Officer Chris Edmonds, and retired Sandy Fire Chief Phil Schneider, who are here to help guide us through the topic of the possible annexation of Sandy Fire into Clackamas Fire. The purpose of this webinar is to make sure our entire community is fully informed about the annexation process, the available options, and most importantly, how it may impact you. This session is being recorded and will be available soon at clackamasfire.com. At the end of the presentation, you'll see a QR code on the screen, and you can scan that for additional resources and details. And please don't forget to take the community survey, which is also available on our website. Your input is incredibly valuable. Finally, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar by using the chat feature. We'll do our best to address as many as possible at the end of the session.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate the intro, and I'm really excited that everybody's here to join us today. And those that are in the attendees, thank you for being here. It's exciting for us to be able to talk about this topic. And this is just one of those avenues that we've been using as of late to engage the community and continue to remain a trusted community partner and to keep our residents informed. So, Tracy, can we go to the next slide? Awesome. Okay, great. I really want to call out attention to what this map is and what the different colors mean. So the green, as you see right there, is what makes up the permanent citizenry or service area of Clackamas Fire. The pink areas on that map represent the contract cities that we provide service to. One of which on the western side or the left-hand side to me of the map being Gladstone, and then on the right-hand side is Sandy and Sandy Fire District. I want to talk a little bit here about what makes up Clackamas Fire. And Clackamas Fire is made up of about 400, just over 400 firefighters, administrative personnel, seasonal and volunteer members. We protect roughly 303 square miles within Clackamas County. We get the honor to be able to serve the citizens within those areas with serving from 24 community fire stations. We serve just over 250,000 members of the community, and we provide services to 6 cities, 16 unincorporated communities. And 2 of those 6 cities that we provide service to are those pink areas that you see on that map, which is Gladstone and Sandy, to which this is what this main meaning is Sandy Fire and the city of Sandy. Clackamas Fire is an all-hazard fire district. We provide fire suppression, wildland fire, fuels mitigation. We have a Type 2 hand crew that is called Crew 30. That's been in existence since 2020, and they are just beginning their 5th season. We are an all-hazard fire agency, which also means specialty rescue. We provide urban search and rescue, hazardous materials response, as well as swiftwater rescue. We provide paramedic level emergency medical services, as well as community paramedicine. We have fire prevention division, and we have a community services division for that community engagement that you've seen from us over the last few years. We provide emergency management as well as an internal incident management team for escalating incidents, which we might talk about here a little bit later, Steve, but I'll just throw it in. But an example is like the Camp Creek fire that happened in 2023. Clackamas Fire had its incident management team running that adjacent with the federal teams. We have internally, we have a training division, we have our own fleet facilities and logistics. We have our own human resources, our own health and safety division, which some of their focus is on wellness and overall wellness for our firefighters. So we're a vast organization made up of some pretty amazing people, and it's an honor to be able to serve these communities and the 6 cities and 16 communities we get to serve. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, this is Phil.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Well, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to speak a little bit on the background. That we're going to share this between myself and Chief Dieters. All started out, well, Sandy Fire before 2020, we could see the challenges ahead of us. We were, the last 5 to 10 years, been increasing about 100 calls for service a year. And so the writing was kind of on the wall that we're going to get backed in a corner at some point. Kind of three of the factors we looked at was the accelerated growth in Sandy, which increased call volume. The volunteer response seemed to be less, which is a nationwide problem, especially during the day when more people are working further away from home. So that was an issue. And then just the rising cost of doing business as a single entity. We just weren't sharing anything. And, for a small district, it was very hard to keep up. So moving into 2020, we had an opportunity. We had a chief officer that retired. And so that gave us a real opportunity to look at what opportunities were out there for us. Do we just rehire and do the same thing we've always done? Or do we take this opportunity to take that money and grow with it and be more efficient as a community? So we made that first partnership with Clackamas Fire. I was a little selfish on some of it. We had the battalion chief command and control. With the one chief officer leaving, it basically left myself and one chief officer to run 365 days, which created, some burnout. So it was very welcome to take that money that we had for one person and basically had highest quality command and control to know that the city was going to be, fire district's going to be taken care of on any of the elevated more than a single apparatus event. And then we traded, went to fleet maintenance, which again is probably one of the best programs in Oregon. It's just top notch. Our engines have been at the top than they've ever been, and same with training. So that was kind of our first 2020 was our big working together with Clackamas Fire, doing these three concepts: the command and control, the fleet maintenance, and the training. So it went very well for that year. And in 2021, we were still kind of lacking having a second apparatus, always asking for mutual aid from other fire districts around us. And so Chief Brown and I kind of both had this same similar needs. We needed a second apparatus to respond for double taps. And they had Station 18 on Judd Road that was a 12-hour shift and wanted to go to 24-hour shift. So by working together, we were able to come up in 2021 as a co-staffing of the Eagle Creek Community Fire Station, which was awesome. Basically, for me, it cost Sandy that I basically paid for 3 firefighters, and we basically ended up with 9. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And for them, they could supply 24 in the Eagle Creek area. So that's what we've been doing until 2023. And Steve, I'll let you, Chief Dieters, take over from there if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you, Phil. Good explanation there. So I'll just bring us started at 2023. And so that contract started, the official contract started July 1st of 2023. So we transitioned all of the Sandy employees and firefighters and paramedics into the Clackamas system, and we started staffing that the main station there in 7-1. And like Phil and Ron and Ryan and myself, I live in the community, and what we really weren't prepared for is, and I never noticed that as a citizen, but how much really happens in that community and the events and all that, not to mention the calls. So I'm really proud of the career and volunteer folks that are stationed out there that attend and make all of those appearances happen and all of that. And, you know, we were just sort of overwhelmed with everything that happens. We started in July and we were running from the moment. Phil did a great job of setting up the station for success and all that, but he neglected to tell us all the details. So we still hold him responsible. But and then we had some really big events that happened right out of the gate. And Nick, you kind of touched on it with the Wildland. You want to add a little bit about what happened in 2023?
Yeah, I'd love that. Just real quickly, I think just to hit on the topic of the community engagement, I think that's one of the things that we've loved most about serving in the community of Sandy is how much the citizen group engages, whether it's the breakfast or now that we've introduced Op Santa. There's just all the events, they are well attended, which that fuels us. We enjoy engaging with the community and going to those events, especially when the community comes out and rallies like they do. So but yeah, I think Steve, what you're speaking to is really within the first month. Actually, I think it was 5 weeks into the full contract for service. We had the Blue Jay fire on the west side of the Sandy River. And the thing that I really loved about that is the ability through partnerships that we have with the Forest Service, with ODF, we were able to get air assets on that fire immediately and keep it contained to a small footprint. And thinking, I remember circling up with Phil and you afterwards and being like, okay, hey, here we go. But then 2 weeks later, we get dispatched in partnership with the Forest Service to the Camp Creek fire in the Bull Run. And I think that was a really good opportunity to show what Clackamas Fire, the services that Clackamas Fire can provide, the partnerships that we have with Mount Hood and the Forest Service. And from the minute that fire started till it ended, Clackamas Fire in partnership with Mount Hood and the firefighters from the Hood were on that incident. Our Type 2 hand crew was on the incident, as well as multiple Type 3s, and engaged with the community, with our incident management team, with the Forest Service. I think that we really, right out the chute, within 6 weeks, we had 2 significant incidents that we were able to show why the Sandy board and why Phil thought that this was the direction and felt that this was the direction to go. And it really proved right out the chute why that relationship was important and why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely agree. So now it brings us to 2025, and what we're talking about tonight is that we as a community and as voters may have the opportunity, if this is referred by the Sandy board, as a community to vote to make this more of a permanent relationship. So next slide, please.
Oh, this is Chris.
Yes, thank you. So in March of 2025, just a few months ago, we worked with DHM, which is a reputable scientific public research firm based out of Portland that works with a lot of local governments, to commission a survey of Sandy Fire District residents. This was a scientific survey with a margin of error of plus or minus about 6.8%. And we sampled 200 residents within the district. So these survey findings, the full survey findings, are available on the Sandy Fire District Board of Directors materials. And this is something that we've talked about quite a bit. But there are some really important findings that we found, which is, one, wildfires are obviously the top concern within the Sandy community. So 88% of the respondents we surveyed were really worried about wildfires, especially wildfires becoming more frequent and severe. That contrasts with a range of other situations that polled much lower. Now, simultaneously, I'm sorry, I have somebody here who's joining me. Hold on one second, Ruth. All right, apologies for that. We all
That's
work on
awesome.
hybrid these days. So 82% of respondents believes that we need the best resources and most skilled fire services to respond to wildfires. One thing that I thought was really important was that residents were very making clear prioritizations in this survey. Things like emergency response times, wildfire safety readiness, the ability for the district to make strategic investments in personnel and equipment, depending on situational factors, variables, seasonality, especially in high wildfire risk areas. That was very important across all survey responses. The most trusted messengers on this issue were local firefighters serving on the front lines for residents. And then ultimately, 80% of respondents we surveyed supported annexation into Clackamas Fire once they understood the mechanism, how it would work, what the benefits would be, as well as what the costs associated with that over the long term would be. Thanks. We can go ahead to the next slide.
Awesome. All right, Phil and Ron and Ryan, this one's you.
Hey, I'll start off. I've been fortunate to be able to serve my community as a board member for the past 6 years. And as these guys go through their slides, I'm still trying to catch up on all the nomenclature and buzzwords that the fire department uses. So if you don't understand everything, don't feel alone, because I'm still asking questions. But my background obviously is not in firefighting, but it's in business and business management. And the fire district is a business. And part of my main goal or duties here is to make sure that the dollars, your tax dollars, are spent as best as possible. And several years ago, when we entered into contract for services with Clackamas Fire District, we did that because we were duplicating the same thing that Clackamas Fire District already had. We had our own HR, we did payroll, we tried to do our training, health and wellness, and the overall administration. And I think Phil and his crew did a great job at it. But we looked at it as we could use those dollars by some of those dollars, I think, better by utilizing those same services of Clackamas Fire District, and then taking those dollars to bring in additional actual firefighter personnel. And as a result of the contract we started a couple of years ago, we were able to bring in a rescue rig that runs 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you may not see it, but you basically have double coverage in our heaviest times. And so from as a board member, our service level to you, the community, has gone up tremendously through it. And also, before, we were always relying on this mutual aid, that if something got too big for us, then we would rely upon Clackamas Fire District, Gresham, et cetera, to come in and help. And that's okay once in a while, but if you're just relying upon them all the time, it gets a little bit old. And now, after joining or having Clackamas Fire District run our business for us, they have so many more resources to pull from, equipment, personnel, expertise, et cetera, training, everything. I just really feel and see for the community, it's just a better deal. And so, if everything's so good, why are we looking at this? Well, it's actually a contract, and in a few years, who knows what's going to come up. At Clackamas Fire District may not want to renew with us, and if that was the case, then we would have to go back and put back in our own administration, HR, all the stuff that we were doing in the past, and have to pull firefighters off to use some of their dollars for the overhead of actually running the fire district. And the other thing I've learned too in the last 6 years is, like in my business, to compete with growth, I can add one person at a time. And in the fire business, it's a little bit different. If you want to add a person, you actually have to add at least like 3.5 because of the different shifts they run. So it's a much different business model, and our as taxes grow in the Sandy Fire District, they don't grow at that level. So it allows, by putting our dollars into the Clackamas Fire District, we have much better resource management and allocation for services. Anyway, it's a little long-winded, but
No, I think that was great. I really do. You know, and I think you brought up such a valid point, and that I'm not sure the public truly understands, is that when you talk about your own business, Ron, like adding one personnel is one person, but the fire department runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so when we add a staffed position, we need to make sure that that's 20 staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which equals basically 3.5 people for one spot. And that's such a great perspective to share right there with that. And it ties directly into really the increasing costs across the board that it is to provide fire service. So I love that. Ryan or Phil, did you guys have anything else to add on this slide?
No, I did not.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Thanks, Ron.
mm-hmm.
Can I go back? Sorry, I was muted there, Chief.
Oh, I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
No, it was my fault. I had it muted. I just want to make one quick, how important, Ron brought it up, but how important that second vehicle that you guys are providing, that even at 12 hours, is super incredible. I mean, back when I was still chief, we kind of looked, and for some reason, I don't know why, but Sandy runs about 11% of double taps. And what I mean by that is when the first engine company goes out to an alarm before they clear, we were getting tapped with either another call or maybe 2 or 3 calls. And so as fire chief, sitting there and not knowing if the second rig was going to get out, was very discouraging. I mean, when the community calls for help, you want to be there. And it's been such a relief knowing that there's somebody that can run two in a row, and then we have to start pulling. But that's been incredible what I've seen over the last 2 years. It's made big difference. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
I love that. And it actually brings me to, right, we talk about being able to scale and being able to provide the services based on the diverse area of coverage. Clackamas Fire, you know, we currently, in 2020, we had 6 wildland apparatus. Currently, we have 20. And so, you know, being able to respond to the needs of the community and respond to the diverse emergencies we face, especially in the wildland urban interface front, which is exactly where Sandy is, being able to have 20 spread between type 3 and type 6 apparatus, which the public isn't going to know, but that's a heavy duty brush truck or a light duty brush truck, and a mix of all of those, I think is a great point to speak to. And that's something that Phil and I talked about when we first started talking about why moving into this. So that's a great points, guys. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on to that next slide. Okay, this is a Phil, Ryan, and Ron again. What are the benefits of annexation?
So do you want to go, Ron, or you want me to
Go
chime
ahead.
in? So I'll just start off again. I mean, it was already mentioned, but I want to reiterate again. We just talked about the 2 rigs going out the door, and looks like if this goes through, we'd probably be taking even the one from a 12 to a 24. So that's going to be a huge benefit for the community. The Sandy Fire on its own could not do it. We did not have the money to do that. And then the specialty teams, and I know Chief Brown mentioned it, but again, I'm seeing it from a different side now. And you know, the Crew 30, I got to use them a couple times on our own fire when I was still fire chief, and I mean, it made total difference where you have 20 people show up in a hand crew. Pretty darn impressive. Highway 26 has been one of the deadliest. It's getting better, but one of the deadliest highways in Oregon. And you know, with their specialty extrication, that team trains every week on how to extricate. we have a lot of farm equipment, a lot of those type of events that could happen. So, you know, the heavy extrication team, truck company, Sandy couldn't afford a truck company. One, we probably couldn't afford it, and two, we couldn't have the personnel to staff it. So to have those at least available to us, you know, we have two large assisted living facilities that are 3 and 4 stories high. We're getting, if you look out 211, we're getting, you know, apartment multi-complexes that are 4 stories high. Those are going to be critical needs in type of fires in those buildings. Look how many people go through Sandy hazardous materials every day. Some people don't, they just don't have a clue how many semis go through hauling hazardous materials. They have their own hazmat team. High angle rescue with our rivers, either people falling down banks, which Sandy does between the Bull Run and the Sandy River, actually get quite a few calls in the summer. And, you know, they have the water team. And I mean, I'm kind of sounding like a broken record, but those are all important. Health and wellness, prevention, public information officer. It just goes on and on. Unfortunately, in the old days, you know, I wore about 4 of those hats, and that's not always a good thing. So these guys and gals take it very serious about training every week, and there's special teams. So yeah, that's going to be huge. That's a huge advancement, and I've been on scene and seen what they do, and it's incredible.
I love that. You know, as I was thinking about that, Phil, can, you know, Ron and Ryan, and maybe Ryan, you could, because I think you have a unique perspective with this. The staffing of Dover Station with volunteers and water tender operators, like how have you seen that within the fire district and the benefits of that?
Well, I think it's actually essential. I mean, water supply is one of the main concerns of any firefighter or any, you know, company officer. So I think that having that ability to staff the water tenders is, you know, is crucial to success.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, I'll add on that, Chief, too, as well, because I'm pretty involved at that station. But yeah, the volunteers, I mean, they're running the Dover community, the Furwood Dover community is very excited. That is, we could never probably take it past maybe 7 nights a month, and we try, and it's hard. But with the joining of Clackamas volunteers and the Sandy volunteers, they're able to fairly close to 28 in that 28 range out of 31 day nights that they are they're up there with a 3-person crew. So I know the community up there is very pleased with that response model. Again, they have a quick response rig that's basically a brush rig. So, you know, that can respond first out on your car fires, your brush fires. Medical wise, you know, the paramedics are still coming from Sandy main station, but what that does is get somebody there, you know, it's just drive time. There's nothing we can do about it. To drive from here to Wildcat's going to take you 10 minutes or 12 minutes. So to get somebody there that night and get them up there on some of these calls, that minutes make huge difference. So yeah, that's been awesome up there, and it's getting good reviews on that.
Yeah, when we had the open house there on Saturday, it was now granted had a bunch of people there for the open house, but that station was staffed with volunteers. And I can't remember if it was a miscellaneous fire or commercial fire alarm or something along those lines, but to be able to see Brush 7-4 get out the door within a minute and 10 seconds into that community, I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, being kind of one of the laymen here, and maybe a little different perspective, but seeing the internal workings, I never really realized before that, and again, Sandy Fire District, I think, has always done a superb job. But if they were on call for something, we would have to rely upon Boring Station, Eagle Creek, back into Gresham for backup, or even Hoodlet. Okay. Now that in the last 2 years with the contract for services that we have going through and the reallocation of dollars, we're able to have the emergency response rig that primarily handles medical calls. And they're, you know, 75% of the calls are basically advanced life support calls. And so they're able to get there faster. It's less wear and tear on the rig, taking the big engine around. But the big thing is Sandy, now Sandy Fire District can really respond to 2 calls at one time without looking for somebody else. And that's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. But with the annexation, we will bring that up to a full 24 hours a day to be able to have 2 sets of crews being able to go out and take care of my community. And the other one that I really like, I'm sitting here, I have my little app, tells me when the trucks are rolling.
Yep.
But Clackamas Fire District under Chief Brown has instituted, if the word I use fire comes in, if there's a house fire, etc. You know, I go back to things I watch on TV. Somebody rolls up, oh, it's a 2 alarm, call an additional rig, right? In to help. No, with Clackamas Fire District, if they hear the word fire, they send everything. So there's no hesitation, you know, about getting the right crews there and bringing additional. So it's easier to call people off when they get there if it's not something big. And I mean, I just think that's a huge, huge benefit to the community when there is a fire. So.
Love that, Ron.
Chief, I do have one more thing, and then I'll be quiet. But another thing that was a huge improvement for Sandy was, and I heard it from the guys all the time, and I always felt bad. They never got the proper training because they were always there was one shift on, and they always had to be in service. And so to do some really in-depth training, it was just hard to do because as soon as you started training, they got a call, right? And so I love how 14s and 18s, which is the neighboring stations, they all move around. It lets our main station people go wherever, whether it's down at the main training or the boarding facility or whatever they do, but they can go focus on training, and that's life-saving to them. So that has been a huge also for that.
Love that, Philly. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else with this side? Ryan, Ron, Phil, you good?
Yeah,
Good.
actually, I have one more thing to just kind of echo what Ron and Chief Schneider were saying, is that, you know, fire grows in size. It doubles every 30 seconds. And so with the ability to dispatch so many units to a house fire, that's integral to success. And so by having a larger department, it's going to create better access to more rigs versus having to ask for mutual aid or something else that's going to take and delay the time.
That's a great point. Appreciate that. Tracy, let's move on to the next slide. All right, Steve, this is you.
Yeah. So, and I think Director Lazowski touched on a ton of these, but some of the alternatives to annexation would be, you know, ultimately the Sandy board would have to make those decisions down the road. This is a contract, as was alluded to earlier. It does have an end date on it, and most likely we would predict that if it isn't referred, or if it somehow doesn't, if it is referred and it doesn't pass, we'd have some thinking to do and to go back to the drawing board, and most likely would have to renegotiate a little bit. If the contract were to go away, as Director Lazowski said, Sandy would start over and probably wouldn't be able to have the level of coverage that they have today for those same dollars. So the alternatives are limited, and I don't want to be super negative about it, but it would be sort of limited for the community and how they would proceed. It would be up to the board to do that, but most likely some negotiation or the possibility of asking the community for a levy to fund just to get to the level that they're getting, that we are getting right now.
Great points. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Okay. So this is outreach and community engagement. So Clackamas Fire Board and the Sandy Fire Board, Chief and myself and many others present to the boards every month of all the activities, the financials, everything that's happened. We cover some of the major calls, but also the Clackamas Fire Board and the Sandy Fire Board have named 2 members each to be on our interagency committee, which is committees that we just get together and specifically talk about the contract and things that are going well, things that we've changed. And in the beginning, we were meeting monthly, and then we went to 3 months. Now we're about every 6 months. And just making sure that we are meeting the expectations of the elected officials on both sides, and making sure that we are really taking care of the communities like we said we would. We've also done some joint board work sessions as where both boards get together and talk things through, talk about the contract and next steps, or just how things have been going. Civic groups, we are engaged with many civic groups, and Chief Schneider, he did a fantastic job of being out in the community and has introduced us to all of these groups, and we meet on a regular basis with those groups. We've held open houses, multiple open houses at 7-1, and then, as been talked about earlier, Station 7-4 in Dover. This is the first open house for us there, and super excited to do it. We had a great time, and we're looking forward to doing a few more there. And that one was focused a little bit more on exactly what we're talking about tonight, just some community information. And then, as our information officer talked about, we did community surveys. We still have a survey available on the website that can be accessed. You just visit our website and you can do that. And then one of the things that Chief Schneider did that we kind of inherited is we meet with the community leaders, and I'm going to have Nick kind of talk about the importance of that and who they are that we meet with, and why do we meet with those folks.
Yeah, I love that. And that is it's an awesome example of getting everybody face to face to look at how we can benefit as a whole, as a team, versus individually the communities. And Clackamas Fire, within our 6 cities, our 16 communities, it all looks different just based on the area of coverage of what these meetings look like. It could just be me and the city administrator. It could be Steve and the public safety representative. It really differs based on the needs of each community and city. But the thing that's awesome about with what we do with Sandy is monthly we meet with the city administrator, with the police chief, with the school superintendent, and with Chief Snyder, and then with Steve and myself, and talk about what's going on in the community. What are some wins? What are some things that we all are working on? Areas for improvement, and then honestly, there's a lot of just fellowshipping and getting to know each other. And why is that important to me? I think it's really, really important. And we had a little bit of a trial by fire, which was great. But the first time I had talked to Aaron Bayer was Camp Creek Fire, trying to figure out places to have a fire camp. Now, based on the relationship and based on pre-planning and meeting and communicating, we already have some of that stuff pre-designated. And so it's developing these relationships for when major incidents happen or minor incidents happens. We have that face-to-face, we have the phone call, so we know each other and we know how each other, we're able to anticipate the needs of each, we're able to anticipate the needs of the city, able to anticipate the needs of the school district, able to anticipate the needs of law enforcement. So it's really a crucial meeting to progress the public services for the city of Sandy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Phil,
Next.
anything with that from your perspective, being that you participate in it?
No, just that, there was always people, are they going to get involved? And I can testify that you guys have done a great job. You've been at every civic event and everything that Sandy Fire participated in. You guys, and again, a lot of people don't realize, all the cities that you have to do this with, and you've made Sandy yours, and so, and I see that. It's just not a front, and we're going on 2 years, and you're still showing up same meetings that I go to, and so yeah, no, it's one of those things. I tell people, they ask me, was it the right thing to do? It's sometimes you go buy something or you go do something, and later it says, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But I've never looked back. It's been one of the best things for the community. When you're just looking at data, and what's really important is when people call 911 or multiple people call 911, that I can lay in bed and know that there's going to be a professional paramedic, qualified person that's going to take care of every event we have. So yeah, I'm very pleased with everything you guys are doing.
I love that. I appreciate you saying that, Philly. One of the things that I think was important to the electeds for Sandy, the board members and you, was that we did that. And that when I said that I was going to be your fire chief, I was going to be your fire chief. And I stand by that, and we stand by that. I'm your fire chief, and I take great pride in that. And I think that's really what makes up Clackamas Fire. We're a bunch of small departments, just like Sandy was, that's created this organization. So we immerse ourselves in the communities that we get the honor to serve, and we take it very serious. So I appreciate you calling that out, Philly. Thank you. Next slide. Awesome. Okay. So this is a big one for most people on here, I'm assuming, as well as the public, is what would annexation cost? So the simple fact of the matter is Clackamas Fire's base rate, our base millage rate, that's our taxing rate, is $2.40 per thousand of assessed property value. So Sandy residents would pay the same base amount as those who live within Clackamas Fire boundaries, which is $2.40 per 1,000 of assessed property value. Ron, would you speak to, because this is a really important topic, because everybody gets confused about the difference between assessed valuation and real market value. And everybody seems to base what they think things are going to cost on their real market value of their home versus the other, which is actually the assessed valuation.
Correct. And when this came up, and again, there is a cost of doing this.
Yep.
And I think it's very slight. But when I heard the 22 cents per thousand, I go back to what my home's worth, start running the numbers through my head, right, and see what it was. And then the chiefs came back and said, no, it's not the real property value, it's the assessed. And I've looked at several of my family members, et cetera, and it's typically, again, about half, if not lower than that, of what your real market value is. But if you go back to your property tax statement, it shows on there what it is. So it's not quite as scary as you think. But again, they have it broken down to, for the average in the Sandy Fire District, it's about $5 a month, okay, going through $60 a year for the average homeowner, which, considering what you're getting, is, I think, it's just a tremendous value.
Yeah, I thanks for saying that. And I think it is important to speak to right now that the Clackamas Fire does have a levy. And that levy is for increased staffing and for wildfire protection. But Sandy residents would not be required to pay the current Clackamas Fire levy, which is 52 cents per thousand, which was passed in 2023. Now that levy expires in 2028. So after annexation, Sandy residents would then be able to vote on any measures referred to the ballot by Clackamas Fire. And so what Director Lazowski talked about, of the 22 cents increase per thousand, and that being that median assessed valuation of $5 per month, that is for our millage rate, and the citizens would not have to pay for the current Clackamas Fire levy. They would have any option in the future to vote on those measures.
And if I can, the other one is our projections, just as it sits today. In a few years, when we need to start replacing some equipment that we have, we don't have enough money with our tax revenues right now to be able to address it. So we would have to go back to the voters to get some more money to pay for the rigs that are going to need to be replaced.
Yeah, so you're talking if Clackamas Fire and Sandy weren't in this relationship, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep, that's a great point.
And Chief, I just want to point out that us and Sandy, our millage rate right now is 217 per thousand. That's where the
okay. So that's that 22 cent per thousand increase, because you're 217 to the 240.
Correct.
Yeah.
Director Fox, do you have anything to add with that slide at all? You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Let's go to the next slide.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the timeline. So back in January, both boards started to collaborate a little bit more on like what's going to happen in the future. Where do we kind of go with this? Started as a contract. What does that look like? So we engaged in some public surveys and started sort of tested the water locally there. And then we moved into the actual community engagements and started talking about what the desires of the boards were, what they could be looking for, things like that. And then that brings us into the June, July, the summer months. And if annexation measure is pursued by the Sandy board, they would then refer it to the voters by July, and that would have to go to the Clackamas board as well. And if both boards agree that this is going to be advantageous for the communities and as the organization as a whole, they would go to the vote in the November ballots. And then, so that would mean it from August to November, we would continue with our community outreach. One of the things that Clackamas Fire, and I know that the directors of Sandy Fire, is that we are committed to being in the community. We are committed to talking about these things and answering questions. And we are as transparent as we hope everybody wants us to be, but we're absolutely happy to answer any kind of questions. And that's the timeline that would get us, if referred, would get us to the voters' ballot box in November of 25.
Awesome. Okay. Steve, close it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, I'll close this out. So how to stay informed, as I talked a little bit, we want to be right out front with everything for everybody. So we do have a QR code. There's an email on here. If you have questions, there's also the main phone number there that you can call, and all this information is on our website. So we're happy to answer any kind of questions.
I love that. So maybe Tracy, if we just take down the PowerPoint and now open it up to questions from the community. Chris, do you want to walk through the steps for or Tracy for that? Typing in the questions.
Tracy, I'm happy to take this if you would like me to.
Yeah,
So,
I put this on the wrong screen. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, now, yeah,
So-
go ahead.
Everybody who's in the webinar right now has access to the chat function. And if you go ahead and click on the chat function, which should be a button at the bottom of your screen, that will bring up a dialog box that you can go ahead and send a message. We are going to go ahead and we'll watch for those, as well as questions that come in on the Q&A function as well. So either one would work. And then we'll go ahead and answer those in real time. So if you have a question that you'd like to have answered, go ahead and submit it now.
I would like to say, actually, if people are watching this that aren't live, that they're watching at a later date, to please reach out to the board members and ask questions, because we're more than willing, or more than open to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Okay, is it okay to go ahead?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay. It says Sandy Fire District used to provide full vehicle extrication capabilities, and now, as I understand it, has limited ability until other trucks arrive from Happy Valley or Damascus. Would it also provide for staffing a ladder truck? Currently, the closest is a Gresham's truck, in addition to the engine and rescue.
That's a great question. So what I can commit to is increased level of service. So we would be able to, with this annexation, we'd be able to increase the amount of firefighters that are currently staffed in Sandy, and being there for the last couple of years, being able to see the level of services we provide, the increasing the services, I think we'd be able to diversify and see if that is the rescue continuing that at 24 hours, or if it's even further increasing to other types of response models and other types of of companies. But what the annexation would bring would be increased firefighters.
Perfect. Okay, so the next question says, in the case of annexation, when would we begin to see enhanced services?
Steve, you want to hit that one? You're muted.
Sure thing. Thank you. We have the enhanced services right now. We have the, as explained earlier, we have the full gamut, all hazards. That is right now. What the annexation does is makes that a permanent relationship right now. As has been said before, it's under contract, but we are all hazards. We provide all of those things. Same thing that a Clackamas Fire resident currently has access to.
But Steve, excuse me, we were talking about going from the rescue rig going from 12 to 24. If we did annex, and when would that take effect?
I would predict July or November. I would say after the vote,
Right.
sometime after that.
Okay.
And then I realized really quickly, if it's okay, if I can have a go back. Some of that first question was specific to extrication. So the Sandy fire engine does have extrication equipment on it, and so it's a tiered response. So that Sandy engine is able to get there, stabilize, peel and peak, be able to start primary extrication, and by the time that happens, then you have the squad that shows up with a broader range of extrication equipment, and then there's also the heavy rescue that's responding if the needs get there. So it's a little bit of a tiered system based on the depths of the extrication that would need to happen. But Sandy's fire engine does have extrication equipment on it currently. I just forgot that question, that response. Sorry about that.
Perfect. So the next question is, how would annexation adapt to Sandy's growing needs and population?
Say that one more time.
How would annexation adapt to Sandy's growing needs and population?
Yeah, I love that. So the annexation gives us that flexibility to use quantifiable data. So it's really easy to be in the business as a fire chief or as a firefighter and to think that this might be the best level of service based on a gut instinct. But we utilize programs, and we utilize historical data. We utilize projected data to really figure about what the best response model and best response and treatment that there is based on the instance that we're forecasting. So, for instance, the wildfire. There's a huge wildfire risk to the Bull Run. It's been identified federally. It's been identified at the state, and so being able to ensure that we have the wildland urban interface resources able to respond quickly to those incidents is crucial. And so it really depends on where the community grows. As Phil spoke to earlier, there are more and more 3- and 4-story buildings popping up in Sandy. And why is that important? Well, that's important because ground ladders are typically 35 feet long. And so now that starts to look at the fire district, now that it is an annexed and part of the fire district, it gives us the flexibility now to be able to see which vehicles and which staffing is going to be best for the community based on historical and projected data and projected growth that's coming into that community. Ron, did I articulate, because I get talking in the fire terminology quite often. Did that make sense to you think that made sense to the lay public?
I think it did. I mean, for my simple Polish brain, it basically allows the Clackamas Fire District to deploy the assets where they make the most sense.
That's exactly it.
So right now the assets that we have are really bound to the contract, and it's what we had before. Opening this up allows you guys to kind of play chess and move the pieces to where they make most sense. We're fairly close as it is.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to just refine it that much better.
That's perfectly articulated.
Yeah. I think I would like to say is that our resource pool is just much larger than it was. And I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. Yep. I love that.
Okay, so it looks like there are no other questions that have come in.
Sweet.
So with that,
Oh, wait, it
yes.
looks like maybe something's popping up.
Okay, stand by.
There you go.
I know our own fire marshal office has been reduced. How are you going to bring on more service areas? And then it says, Sandy used to have 20 hours a week. And what are we, the citizens, receiving under the contract, or if we annexed into the district? So several questions in that.
That's great. And the person to be able to answer that is probably Phil and Steve. Phil can speak to the previous level of service. And then Steve, if you'd be able to answer the level of fire investigation and prevention and fire marshal's office that Sandy's getting.
Sure.
Yeah, Deers, you'd probably take it. Yes, we used to do a part-time couple days a week, 20 plus hours a week. So, it was bare minimum. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough hours. You're getting a lot more bang for your buck now. Yeah. But Steve, I don't know if you want to go to
Yeah,
depth.
sure. Yeah. So in the contract, we wrote it specifically to meet what was happening at the time, which was 20 hours. And we've focused in the beginning, getting caught up on a few things and all that. And in our fire marshal office, they really wear quite a few hats. They're investigators, they're inspectors. They also do the community outreach. They help with those types of things. So we commit people out there to however much is needed. If there's an investigation, we will send the Army if we need to. We'll send two. If it's something one person can handle, that's fine. We have the fire marshal's office that is broken up into like east, south, north, all of those. So we have the east, which Sandy, Damascus, Boring, Eagle Creek, those areas. So there is an inspector assigned to those areas. And so they spend as much time as needed. And then, like I said, if they need help, they'll get it. But I would say confidently that it's more than what it was. And we would continue with that dedication out there as the contract continues. We'll commit to that. And if it becomes an annexation, we'll still commit to that.
Well, and it's really a scalable model, right? So as Sandy grows, then there's the more need for services. So it's all based on level of need, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I can say as a business owner in the city of Sandy that the level of inspection has gone up tremendously. Okay. And that just adds to the prevention side, making sure, in terms of my business, that the right fire extinguisher, their exits or whatever. So I've definitely seen, just personally in my business, definitely an increased level of service there. So I think that's great for the community.
Yeah, I would just add, it's just, again, talking the depth. I mean, we had one person that basically only did one function. And so we were farming out investigators and that type of stuff. So again, I mean, Steve, I'm not sure how many you have in that group now, but there's probably 5 or so in the deputy fire marshal's office, I think. So again, if there's a bigger alarm, they just pull more people out here. So yeah, we're getting a lot more we had or available that we could pull from.
That might be the rest of the questions. I don't see anything else that have come up. So with that, thank you again for being here tonight, and please don't forget to take the survey, the community survey that is available on clackamasfire.com, and take care.
Real quick, Tracy, before we cut it off, because I think this is really important that, we have both two board of directors on here, and I can't thank you both enough for your time and dedication to the community to be here and to be able to answer questions and to represent what we're trying to do. I think, Steve, when you talked about transparency, I think this is that this is a perfect example of why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you so much for everybody's time. Thank you for letting me be your fire chief, and I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.